our August California Transportation Commission here in the heart of innovation. As you find your seats and our commissioner colleagues take to the dais, I wanted to mention that since we are in my home region, that I want to welcome you to our home here in Silicon Valley. And my mom, who raised 4 sons, I was the youngest, always impressed upon us, when someone comes to your home, give them a gift. Bring them something of enduring and lasting value that they will cherish forever. So, I'm going to give you a copy of our Game Changers 2014 book. And I know what you're thinking, oh my word, can I have 2? Yes, you can. Seriously, I gave my wife a copy of this for Valentine's last year, and she is still talking about it. And I found out that the couch isn't as uncomfortable as I feared it would be. Actually, Game Changers is 20 thought leaders, mainly private sector, some public sector, that all wrote 500-word essays about something they're personally going to do over the next 12 months that they think is a game changer. And we think you'll enjoy it. For those of us who fly, it's kind of a fun, easy read, and you only have to pick one at a time. So with the help of Doug and our CTC staff, we will just hand a stack at the end of each row. You just pass it along if you don't want it. Take a copy or 2 if you want it. And thank you again for joining us today. With that, I think I have stalled long enough for everyone to be in their place. And we will start with a roll call to make sure we have a quorum. Doug, would you mind?
Commissioner Alvarado. Yes. Commissioner Simmons. Here. Commissioner Burke.
Here.
Commissioner Dunn.
Here.
Commissioner Hart. Here. Commissioner Fromer.
Here.
Commissioner Gilvetti. Commissioner Inman. Commissioner Medassa. Here. Commissioner Cavaloni.
Here.
Commissioner Bardino.
Present. Doug, thank you. Now that we've worked past the controversial roll call item, who's number 1 on our agenda, it's all easy from here. We're moving on to resolutions of necessity. Stephen Mahler.
Yes, Commissioners, we have received a communication from the requester of the resolution of necessity hearing that he's no longer opposing the resolution of necessity. He will not be appearing, so staff recommends that you approve the resolution of necessity.
Is there a motion? Second. Motion by Commissioner Assimi, second by Commissioner Inman. Is there any discussion? There's no cards on this item. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That receives the 8 votes that it needs. Under general business, is there a motion to approve our minutes for our June 25th, 2014 Commission hearing?
Move it. Second.
That was a motion by Commissioner Taglioni and a second, I think, by Commissioner Alvarado. Questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes. Andre Boutros, our Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, my report today consists of only one item, which is a request for you to approve the annual report for 2014. So we begin the publication process. With that request, I also request your indulgence to allow us to make any edits to the report as we put it together for the publication.
Andre, I appreciate that. I have an appointment with our Deputy Executive Director, Susan Branson, for next week to go over just mainly small typographical items. Great. There's a motion by Commissioner Medaffer. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second by Commissioner Fromer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes unanimously. Commission reports. Does any commissioner have anything that they would like to report on during the last month? We have lights lit up. I'm not sure if that's from previously or now. Vice Chair Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 items to report. Commissioner Inman and I convened a meeting of the Aeronautics Committee on August 4th in Sacramento. A number of items discussed, but primarily the need to leverage all of the federal funds possible through the airport improvement program. We had some issues on the appropriateness of the current priority ranking matrix for selecting acquisition and development projects. And in fact, it was kind of troubling, I think, to both Commissioner Inman and I that we spent a day traveling to Sacramento to talk about so little funding for aeronautics, and to find that, 60% of which was going for Caltrans staff, not to our small airports, to underwrite their review of regulations that might or might not be necessary and may or may not be enforced. So we need to do a little bit more review of this to find out how we can make this more efficient and effective of precious resources. So that's sort of the good news, hopefully bad news with a resolution. On the good news side, however, the Aeronautics Committee, both Commissioner Inman and I, through the chair, would like to nominate a new member to the Commission's Technical Advisory Committee in Aeronautics. Jeffrey Bruce Logan has requested appointment, and we unanimously supported his request from TACA. He is an aviation insurance industry professional, a private pilot, and for 15 years he served on the Contra Costa County Aviation Advisory Committee. And so that, I believe, comes through you, Mr. Chair, and so we were just sharing that for you as one of our items.
Vice Chair Dunn and Commissioner Inman. Vice Chair Dunn and Commissioner.
There you go.
There's too many on. That's a good way to silence the chair. Vice Chair Dunn and Commissioner Inman, thank you for taking the time and trouble and interest to travel all the way to Sacramento for meeting with Mr. Logan as well. I'm delighted he's interested. I think we would all agree that our general aviation airports are woefully underfunded. And nice to know that you two are willing to dig into that deeper. I don't know if it requires a vote. I'm sure Doug will let me know, but I would be delighted to appoint Mr. Logan. So I have done so. I like this power. This is good. Okay. Would anyone else in the audience like an appointment today? Great.
And, Mr. Chairman, one more item, if I may.
Please.
I have received a number of comments and concerns concerning the Office of Planning and Research, OPR's recommendations and public review of implementation of SB 743 with regard to CEQA changes. And I think that it might be wise for our staff to work with Caltrans staff in reviewing those modifications, particularly as it affects our transportation infrastructure, and would ask the Commission to direct staff to do so.
Great. And I would concur, but I'm only one commissioner. Is there a sense of the Commission to direct our staff to do so? I'm seeing head shaking vertically and not horizontally. So yes, if Andre, you and your small but great team have so much on your plate, with your agreements, we would love the guidance and insights of staff on this.
Happy to do that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dunn. I believe Commissioner Frommer also has his light on, and
Yes,
then Commissioner Asina.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Guardino. At the request of our Executive Director and of several other regional transportation agencies, I did reach out to the legislature last week about a measure which I don't have the number in front of me. This is the measure concerning the reauthorization of hot lanes. 983, yes. The Commission was in support of the bill, and so I felt comfortable making those calls. Unfortunately, the bill did not get out of the Appropriations Committee. There's some politics wrapped up, particularly in Orange County right now, about hot lanes. But I would really urge the Commission staff to be involved. I think they'll run another bill next year, and we should be involved a little bit more on the front end, probably shaping that, because it'll have to do with what guidelines we are permitted to set up and what kind of review process will be. But I'm sure there'll be another push as I know that Metro and other agencies have some pretty urgent needs on getting these hot lane authorizations. So I look forward to working with everybody, and I just wanted to let everyone know I had taken that step and spoken for the Commission.
Commissioner Frommer, thank you for your leadership on that, and we're always so reliant on your insights as a former state legislator on how best to understand and succeed in that process. So thank you for the update on that. Commissioner Assemi and then Commissioner Inman.
Do you want to add anything to that?
I'm going to jump in, Carl, just because I'm going to speak to the same item. We do have agreement on when those expire, right? And I think it was mid-January, is that correct? Where's our Metro team on the pilot project? When is the sunset date, so everybody agrees? Because we definitely don't want to have to undo our work there. So I think timing will be an issue, too, to maybe make sure that we get this work done before that sunset occurs.
Thank you, Commissioner Inman. Commissioner Assemi.
Chair Guardino, thank you. I had a conversation with Congressman Denham regarding additional funding for goods movement in Central California, specifically State Route 99 and Interstate 5. And conversations also with our Executive Director, Andre Boutros, and the local COGS, the 8 county COGS, building a coalition and working with Commissioner Inman and requesting additional federal funds for goods movement throughout the valley.
Well done. Thank you, Commissioner Assemi. Is there any other comments from commissioners? Then let's move on to item 6 in commissioner meetings for compensation. We'll need approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Taglioni, second by Vice Chair Dunn. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That passes unanimously. Brian Kelly, our Secretary of Transportation, who is almost always with us, called late last night and said, "I'll be there. If you want me there, I'm there. But we're taking our daughter to San Diego State today." And father to father, I said, "Buddy, you need to be in San Diego with your family." Actually, I said, "Mr. Secretary, you need to be in San Diego with your family." And so, for very good reason, he is not with us today, but we're absolutely delighted that Undersecretary Brian Annis is with us. Brian, do you have anything that you'd like to report?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Guardino. I wanted to mention a couple upcoming workshops that the California State Transportation Agency and Caltrans are going to be jointly having that are related to the cap and trade auction proceeds. Many of you know that the recent state budget included a bill, SB 862, that set up various cap and trade proceeds programs. There were two in particular that deal with rail and transit investments. One of them is called the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program. That program received $25 million this fiscal year and will receive 10% of annual ongoing cap and trade proceeds in the future. There was a second program called the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program. That is run somewhat similar to the State Transit Assistance and also the Prop 1B PT MISIA program, if you're familiar with that one. It's a formula distribution based on population and revenue that transit operators receive. It goes out based on a formula. Again, the agency and Caltrans have scheduled 3 workshops at the initial stage of developing guidelines for these two programs. And the CTC was very gracious to let us piggyback on their STIP workshop that they're having tomorrow morning. So the first of our workshops is tomorrow in San Jose City Hall from 10:30 to 12:30, and that again follows the CTC STIP workshop. The second one is Friday of this week, August 22nd, in Sacramento at the California Environmental Protection Agency building. And the last one is next Wednesday, August 27th at 1 p.m. at LA Metro in their board conference room. And again, these are the initial workshops where we're looking for public comment in advance of putting together draft guidelines. So once draft guidelines are put together, we'll come back. We'll note certainly the CTC is the expert in these things and has put together many sets of guidelines for Prop 1B, the Active Transportation Program, other programs, and we're grateful that CTC staff are going to be part of the group that is putting together these draft guidelines. The Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program will be a program where those projects come to the CTC for award and allocation. The other program, Low Carbon Transit Operations Program, is again a formula program, so that'll be like the PT MISIA in the Prop 1B, where projects are reviewed to see if they qualify for the program, and then the controller will actually make those allocations of funds. But again, wanted to note those 3 workshops. We're with the one in Sacramento on Friday in LA. We have fairly large facilities, I think, well over 100 people of space. The one tomorrow here in San Jose, I believe we have capacity of about 60 people in that room. So for some of the people from Southern California or Sacramento that are intending to attend one of the 3, that might be your best option there. We know we have plenty of capacity. But again, I want to thank the CTC commissioners for making available the expertise of CTC staff to help us as we work on the draft guidelines.
Undersecretary Annis, thank you. Are there any questions of the Undersecretary? Great. We'll move on to item 8 then and hear from our Caltrans Director, Malcolm Doherty. Malcolm?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, I have a couple items I'd like to share with you. First, on some personnel appointments. As you'll recall, our longtime District Director in District 3, headquartered out of Marysville, retired earlier this year. We have gone through a selection process and appointed Amarjeet Benapal to be the District 3 Director. Amarjeet most recently was acting in District 10 as a District Director there before we appointed a new District Director there. He's also served as the State Pavement Engineer and several different positions in District 3 in the North Region throughout his career. As the State Pavement Engineer, he did a wonderful job in trying to maximize the effective use of what scarce dollars that we did have. And actually, when he stepped out of that position, and currently the pavement condition in the state of California, the state highway system is actually at the best that it has been in over a decade, and a lot of that had to do with Amarjeet. We also appointed a new Assistant Director to Sustainability in my office, and the gentleman that was appointed to that position is Stephen Cliff. Stephen Cliff worked for the California Air Resources Board as their Assistant Chief of Industrial Strategies Division, and he's had that position since 2013. He's worked at CARB since 2008, and he actually has some involvement at University of California, Davis as well. So I welcome both those individuals to their new positions. I also came with some gifts, not necessarily for the entire audience, but we passed out to the commissioners the latest edition of the mile marker Caltrans Performance Report. This document will be being released publicly later this week, but I felt comfortable in passing it out to each of you. Again, this is the department's effort to enhance our accountability and transparency and give an accurate status on where we are in accomplishing some very significant performance metrics when it comes to transportation. I also am going to hand out another document, and I'll give that to Brian. As you will recall, the department recently updated its mission and its vision. If you'll indulge me, I will restate those here. Our mission is to provide a safe, sustainable, integrated, and efficient transportation system to enhance California's economy and livability. And the vision is for a performance-driven, transparent, and accountable organization that values its people, resources, and partners, and meets new challenges through leadership, innovation, and teamwork. The reason I revisit these is because we also needed to go back and revisit the department's goals and update those so that they align with the newly adopted mission and vision. And 5 new goals, updated goals of where we were, have been adopted, and these will be being rolled out as well this week, both publicly to the legislature, stakeholders, and my staff. The first goal is safety and health, and it is to provide a safe transportation system for workers and users and promote health through active transportation and reduced pollution in communities. The second goal is stewardship and efficiency. Money counts, responsibly manage California's transportation-related assets. The third goal, sustainability, livability, and economy. We need to be making long-lasting smart mobility decisions that improve the environment, support a vibrant economy, and build communities, not sprawl. System performance, utilize leadership, collaboration, and strategic partnerships to develop an integrated transportation system and provides a reliable and accessible mobility for travelers. And lastly, organizational excellence. We need to be a national leader in delivering quality service through excellent employee performance, public communication, and accountability. So these are being officially rolled out this week, but I felt comfortable in sharing those with you. Each one of these goals has a set of objectives, and the objectives are included in this handout, and metrics will be identified for each of these objectives, and we will be using those in future mile markers as far as transparent reporting on metrics, transportation-related metrics as we go forward, and being held accountable to those. The only other thing I wanted to mention, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of conversation about the active transportation program today, but to get to this point, I think it's a culmination of a lot of leadership, both at the agency and the CTC, collaboration between those entities and the department. There's a tremendous amount of work that went into this program, both by local agencies, the department, and CTC staff. We had nearly 800 projects to look at over a 9-week period. And I know that there's going to be a lot of worthy projects being awarded. I wanted to just take a moment and thank a few of the Caltrans staff that worked tirelessly during that 9 weeks. Ms. April Nitsis, the California Office Chief for Active Transportation Program. Ms. Teresa McWilliams, the ATP Program Manager. Kevin Atkinson, Jamie Espinoza, and Miss Mary Barnes, who's the Caltrans Safe Routes to School program. And there were a whole host of others, but I felt obligated to at least call those individuals out because I know how much work went into it. And I know certainly, likewise, there was a tremendous amount of work that went into it from your staff as well. I'm going to defer discussions on the Highway Trust Fund to Mr. Mamano from FHWA. Hopefully I won't be stealing his thunder, but they basically kicked the can down the road. But Vince will elaborate. And at your request, we are also making a presentation today on our stormwater permit and the implications of that to our program, so I look forward to sharing that information with you. So with that, I'll conclude my comments, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Director Doherty, thank you for being with us today and for your report. Are there questions or comments from commissioners? Good. We're glad that you've put together goals and that you have found a way to measure those goals and a timeline as well, and we'll look forward to those reports.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now it's always a pleasure to have Vincent Mamano with us from FHWA, California's Division Administrator. Vincent, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And Malcolm, you stole my thunder. They kicked the can down the road. Thanks a lot. No, actually what they did, they remember the Highway Trust Fund was going down, and our Secretary of Transportation actually sent out a letter to all CEOs of the state saying this is how we're going to manage this. We're going to not give you all the money you need to pay your bills. That letter was actually, there's another letter coming out that came out after that said, disregard the last letter, we kicked the can down the road. There was $10.8 billion that was moved from the general fund to the trust fund, which gets us all the way about to May of next year. Which is not, like you all know, this is not enough to take care of it. It is just a Band-Aid. We're going to be going through this exact same thing again when it comes to May. So it's imperative that we get some long-term legislation that is going to be to the funding that we need. So I think everybody needs to continue to recognize this is just getting us to May. I got to admit, I was a little surprised that we got that long of an extension. Typically, we'd been getting a bunch of 3-monthers. But now we got all the way to May, so that was good. They also extended MAP 21, which was coming to a close at the end of September. So MAP 21, that's our authorizing legislation. So there are actually two different things. Trust fund pays the bills. Authorizing legislation says this is what you can spend. So the authorizing legislation was also extended out till the end of May, which is pretty big also. But it still doesn't address the challenges that we have right now. It's just like Malcolm said, it's kicking the can down the road. It's important to recognize there's a few other things that are in that. Actually, our operating expenses as a federal agency, we're limited. We're going off of 2 years ago money. So right now for the next year, unless something happens in appropriations at the end of September, unfortunately you may not be seeing Federal Highway at all of the different types of things that we'd like to be at and be a part of, just because we don't have the operating expenses. It wasn't taken care of in MAP 21, and unless the appropriators take care of that, then that's where we'll be at also. So I'll keep you posted on that. Victor Mendez, our administrator for Federal Highway, was sworn in as S2, the Deputy Secretary of Transportation. So it's Anthony Fox and then Victor Mendez. So that's pretty exciting. Greg Netto is our acting. He had been our deputy administrator. He is now our acting administrator. That's a very political process. So we'll see what ends up there and whether or not, or who our next administrator is. A couple of the real quick things. Inactive obligations. We talk about this every time. This is when I look this way and say, hey, everybody, inactive obligations, inactive obligations. The inactive obligations are project gets authorized. Typically, end of June, we get our big rush. We get them all in. Project gets authorized. We have a year. If no money has been spent on that project, and it doesn't even have to be we drove piles money. It could be any type of money that needs to be spent on that project, as long as it's legitimate. If no money is spent on that project within a year, then it goes on to our inactive obligations list. And unless we've got a good excuse, I pull the funds for that project. And we'll do it unilaterally very well with Caltrans. I want to thank Norma and Stephen and their whole team with working with us on that. I know it's quite the challenge. But a lot of those inactive obligations sit in locals' laps. It's because they're not spending the money on projects when they can be spending the money on projects. So if you've got an inactive obligation, we're coming up to the end of the year, the fiscal year is the end of September, and you've got a project that's on that list, get in there and bill us. It's because most of the times these projects have spent money on them, they just haven't billed, because it's more convenient to do it at a later time or something like that. We need those things billed. DBE rate, I think we're at 11.6. Did I see that right? We're up in over 11.5. In that.
The goal for the state is at 12.5% goal. I think that's important for everybody to recognize that we're trying to bring this program to where we don't need to have goals on contracts. When we can get the program where we don't have goals on contracts and it's just happening, we've got disadvantaged businesses that are part of our program and they're playing and they're working with us and we're developing them, then that's the goal. That's our goal as a program. So our goal is to stop doing contract goals. So people need to make an effort and do their outreach on that. Tribal outreach is another thing. I've talked about this several times the last time. There's been some summits around the state. We're trying to do a couple more. The tribes are a big part of transportation in California. They have a big impact, and we impact them. We need to make sure we're bringing in the tribes of California early on projects, the outreaches on projects. I know the Transportation Agency has got a policy out there that's looking at that. So I think it's I just kind of want to continue to reiterate that we need to reach out to the tribes in California. There's anywhere between 109 and 111 federally recognized tribes in California, depending on what day you're talking to me. But there's some proposed legislation that could bump that up to the 160, I think it is even. So I just think it's important that everybody needs to recognize early on in a project, it isn't a letter that says, hey, we got a project coming. You need to go out and reach out to them. You need to find ways to make sure the tribes know and they're brought in. So don't count on the fact that you just sent a letter and say, oh, I did my outreach, I'm good. Think up clever ways. I know San Diego, I keep talking about them and all the stuff they're doing down there with the outreach early. I've dealt with the Auburn tribe up in Sacramento area that does a yearly outreach. They reach out to the tribe does an outreach to all of the entities that might touch their land to find out what's going on in the future. And I think it's important that everybody reaches out to the tribes so they can see down the road and things aren't a surprise. So I think that's very important. And lastly, we had 3 SHARP 2, which is our Strategic Highway Research Program grants that were given to SANDAG, MTC, and Caltrans for some planning grants. So congratulations, a lot of competition for those. And I think that's all I have. Do you have any questions for me?
Don't stray too far away from the mic. Vincent Mamano, thank you again. I do see at least a couple of lights, I believe. Commissioner Inman?
I'm sorry I didn't say freight. Gosh, I tried.
Well, you know better. Projects of national and regional significance, our team scurried around to respond to the survey, and I think our Caltrans team had 200 pages of responses, and a number of our other agencies. That report to Congress is due shortly, I believe, in terms of the projects of national and regional significance. So I've also heard that several states didn't even respond. So do you have any update on what's happening? I mean, are we going to reopen the survey, or?
No, I don't have any update on that. I'll look in and find out what the status of that is.
Well, my concern is that the outreach maybe wasn't as effective as it could have been, and a lot of folks thought they'd responded, and then we actually got into the survey and figured out we had a lot of collective work to do in a short amount of time. So if there's more time, we want to know sooner as opposed to later, because we made the deadline, but I'm not sure any of us have time.
I'll check into that and I'll share that with our
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments for Vince? Vince, it's a pleasure to see you. Thanks for joining us. And now it's truly a pleasure to invite to the podium the relatively new General Manager of the Valley Transportation Authority, in whose jurisdiction we are having our meeting today. And I also want to thank Nuria and her team for co-hosting the wonderful celebration of the BART to San Jose extension that the CTC has played such a significant role in delivering. Nuria Fernandez, welcome to the CTC.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I want to take this opportunity to welcome the commissioners to the great city of San Jose, and of course to the County of Santa Clara. We are the technology center for the world of ingenuity and innovation, which is Silicon Valley. We're home to 1.8 million people, 1 million of which live in the city of San Jose, and we're also the new home for the San Francisco 49ers at Levi Stadium, and to a yet soon-to-be unveiled Apple campus, which is going to span 175 acres. So there's quite a lot happening in Silicon Valley, and particularly right here, close to San Jose. And both the Levi Stadium and the new Apple campus will be connected to the Valley Transportation Authority, either by bus or rail, so that's great. Now, one of my responsibilities as General Manager and CEO for the Santa Clara Valley Authority is to provide transportation, that is access to opportunities, so jobs, education, or play, if that's your choice. And one of the first steps I did when I took on this job was to meet with our board of directors and try to make the first 12 months meaningful by identifying key priorities that we wanted to set as the stage for managing the projects and managing the initiatives that we were going to undertake. But also, we all know that what gets measured gets done, so we wanted to make sure that we identified things that we could actually come back and report on performance. We came up with 5 priorities, 3 of which focus on delivering very important transportation services in Silicon Valley. The first priority is one that, as Chairman Guardino mentioned, we celebrated today, which is the extension of BART service into Silicon Valley. And this morning we received, and thank you very, very much to the California Transportation Commission, not only for your vision, but for your support throughout this process. Whether you were here at the beginning beginning or whether you have taken on the responsibility of delivering that last installment. But that $39 million is extremely significant to our ability to complete the project of our Phase 1. So it's through the TCRP program funding that we have now can add the $39 million to the $649 million, which is almost a third of what that first phase cost. The funds to date have been applied to everything from the very beginning, with the environmental design and then now with the construction activities. We have completed 2 years of the Phase 1 project. In 2017, around this time of the year, we will be celebrating the revenue service on that line, and we're all very excited and looking forward to it. It is approximately a year ahead of schedule and $100 million under budget. It's a 10-mile, for those of you who are not familiar with our extension of BART service, it's a 10-mile extension with two stations, one in Milpitas and the last station in Berryessa, which is in North San Jose. We have been also very successful in getting some of the other priorities underway. The second priority is our bus rapid transit, which will be an opportunity for introducing yet another mode of transportation as part of our transportation network in Santa Clara County. It's also going to increase ridership. We have identified some very specific corridors, those corridors with high demand for transportation alternatives. We broke ground early this year, and we are anticipating completion of our bus rapid transit, the first phase, which is our Santa Clara Alum Rock. That should be ready to go and to serve the public in 2015. Technology has been a very important point and very important area that we have focused on, because we want to make sure that since we are in Silicon Valley, we can bring Silicon Valley to VTA. And looking at things that not only includes Wi-Fi but beyond, and making connectivity and providing information to customers and potential riders so they can plan their trips early in advance. So there'll be significant amenities to that system. The third priority is delivering service to the Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. And as you all may have read, we had some early challenges with delivering that service, because it takes a village. And one of the things that we needed, of course, is to provide ticket tracks so that we could stage our trains and have them ready to berth and ready to deliver. But we also learned that many of our spectators that attended the first event were new to public transportation. So that also presented an opportunity. We like to look at our challenges as opportunities. An opportunity to introduce public transportation, which is a key mode of the multiple modes in our transportation transportation portfolio. And clearly not only the experience, but then to understand that an investment that has been made and that will continue to be made is an investment that should be available and accessible to all. So we're hoping that many of them will not only use it for recreation, but they will take advantage of it to reduce the congestions that we are experiencing throughout our existing highway and freeway network. One of the other things that we're focusing on is looking at opportunities for a comprehensive express lanes network that we're currently building out. As the congestion management for the county, one of our major jobs is to really help manage that congestion, and by providing solutions that will make more efficient use of our roadways. So the Silicon Valley Express Lanes program proposes to do just that. We're converting existing carpool lanes along 237, 85, and US 101 to express lanes. What we're hoping to do is to get the solo drivers, to give them an option if they want to use the express lanes, and they can do so for a fee. But what we're really doing also is encouraging as many people to start thinking about carpooling. In March of 2012, VTA began operating the county's first express lane facility on the SR 237 I-880 corridor, and it currently serves as many as 10,000 solo drivers per week. Solo drivers in the express lanes have experienced a time savings of about 15 minutes and have also improved travel times in the general purpose lanes by up to 7 minutes. And lastly, VT is not only in the commute business, but you could say that we are in the real estate business. We have a very robust real estate portfolio thanks to all of the construction, early construction of our light rail, and then, of course, with the BART extension into San Jose. And one of the things that we're trying to do is to take a look at that portfolio and realize opportunities where we can not only start to monetize on the existing parcels, but then looking at our existing assets and trying to figure out how we can assume or assure that those assets can help us generate non-operating revenues to help contribute towards our budget. Just north of San Jose, of our headquarters on First Street, there's a lot of activity that's going on with development, and it's all been drawn because of the whole notion of transit-oriented development. We have our light rail running down First Street, so a lot of developers have looked at First Street as an opportunity not only to attract commercial activity but also residential. So North San Jose is booming right now, and we are really looking forward to welcoming a lot of the new riders that will result that would come to us as a result of that construction. Although these are some examples of the kinds of things that are happening in Silicon Valley and happening as a result of our transportation investment, we continue to be a major player, and we touch just about everything that is meaningful to people. Having better access to housing, jobs, education, health appointments, entertainment, and venues to sporting events, generating more jobs and economic activity, being a better steward of the environment, and providing mobility options that help people make the right decisions and also help with their pocketbook. It's a great time to be in the people-moving business, and I've always embraced it. And I enjoy the opportunity to be at the helm of the VTA, and thank you very much for this kind invitation to share these initiatives with you all.
Nuria Fernandez, thank you for welcoming us to the region. It's a delight to be here. Are there questions or comments to General Manager Nuria Fernandez? Seeing none, thank you again. You may want to stay not too far by. We are going to move item 82 to right after item 15 so that you can be here for that vote. With that, let's please move on to our reports, first being from our regional agencies. Moderator, is Renee here today?
I am.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Renee DeGaroki from the Sacramento Area Council of Governments here on behalf of the regional planning agencies today. I'm the moderator for this fiscal year. We rotate north to south each year, and so I wanted to thank Adrienne Cardoza from OCTA for her leadership last year. The group did meet this morning to discuss items on the agenda and other informational topics. I'm going to highlight three of these interesting topics for my presentation today: the Active Transportation Program, the 2016 STIP guidelines, and overall delivery. The ATP program has been highly anticipated all year. This has been a tremendous effort from guideline development, application development, and the final recommendations. The group would like to recognize CTC staff and Caltrans staff for the work in getting to this point. And we also extend our appreciation to all those volunteers who spent personal and professional time reviewing all of these applications. 771 applications, I believe, were submitted, and this is a large amount of applications to go through, and also highlights the need and both the competition in this process. I would like to note that we did have a great conversation with CTC staff as part of our meeting earlier this morning. Processes over time evolve, and with each iteration there are lessons learned. And as a group, we are looking forward to helping shape Cycle 2 with specific focus on process, approach to scores, handling of construction versus engineering projects. And as a group, we would like to note more inclusion of regional agencies in the next cycle. We're a great forum for vetting projects and helping identify things within our region. For this cycle, we'd like to express consideration for a to-be-considered list for projects that are on the cusp of the final recommendation, or to be able to move forward for projects that can't meet the delivery line items. I would like to transition then to what the regions are doing for their ATP programs, because this was a sequential call, and so all of our regions are currently working hard to hit that September 30th deadline for selecting our projects, so look forward to those coming your way soon following this process. The 2016 SIP guidelines, I wanted to recognize CTC staff for engaging us early on this. This has been a great opportunity for discussion and ways to make the STIP process both more open and transparent. We look forward to the discussion tomorrow at the workshop on performance and how we can improve that. As an RTPA group, we are self-developing a visualization tool or a template that can be used to make all of our documents more consistent and to help CTC staff present them in a more publicly palatable manner, so to speak. Finally, I'd like to highlight statewide delivery. As we approach the end of this fiscal year at September 30th, regional agencies, Caltrans, and we're all working very hard with our local agencies to move our projects forward so that we can be in line to collect as much obligational authority that we can from the redistribution. We've been successful in the past, and we are anticipating to be successful in this year. And with that, I would like to take any questions that you have.
Renee, thank you. Are there any questions from the Commission to Renee? Renee, thank you for the good work you're doing. Moving on to item 12, Jerry Barton in our Rural Counties Task Force. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jerry Barton from the El Dorado County Transportation Commission on behalf of the Rural Counties Task Force. I appreciate the opportunity to present on behalf of the rurals and would also like to acknowledge the leadership over the last 2 years of Sharon Scherzinger as the outgoing chair of the Rural Counties Task Force. Our CTF members are engaged in and involved in working with the Strategic Growth Council on the development of cap-and-trade guidelines. We appreciate the opportunity to be involved in that and remain concerned about how rural agencies might use these cap-and-trade funds. With regard to the MAP 21 Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, it places new emphasis on non-metropolitan planning and indicates that the state may establish regional transportation planning organizations. Since California has already established regional transportation planning agencies, the RCTF members hope that Caltrans will and FHWA will request that FHWA recognize the process that we already have in place for RTPA designations. Although it has been discussed as a Band-Aid here, we do appreciate the extension of MAP 21 and the Highway Trust Fund, which is allowing us to help continue moving projects forward. Like the RTPA group, we are working and following closely on the STIP guidelines process. The STIP funds remain an important and significant transportation fund source for rural transportation projects, so we'll continue our involvement in that. We appreciate the work and effort of the CTC staff and Caltrans on the active transportation program. I was able to participate in the SACOG regional ATP process and reviewed a significant number of applications, and I recognize the significant effort involved. So we definitely appreciate the efforts of everyone. We, as a Rural Counties Task Force, are looking closely at the recommendations of this round and would like to develop an analysis of how rural agencies fared in this first cycle. We agree that some increased regional involvement would be helpful in Cycle 2, which was something that Renee had just mentioned. And we also look forward to working with Caltrans on Cycle 2, so I intend to bring forward some recommendations from the rurals as we have a chance to look more closely at how we did. So with that, that concludes my comments. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Jerry Barton, thank you. Questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, thank you for your time. For our Self-Help Counties Coalition report, we have Kurt Evans with the Valley Transportation Authority. Kurt Evans has the dubious distinction of the first person to hire me professionally out of college, something that he is still in therapy over. Kurt, welcome to...
Mr. Chairman, I see the mentoring has worked out well. You're up there, and I'm down here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Kurt Evans, and I'm with the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority. I've been asked to give the Self-Help Counties Coalition report this afternoon. The coalition met 3 weeks ago in San Diego with Undersecretary Brian Annis and representatives from Caltrans. During this meeting, we covered a number of topics that I would like to share with the commissioners. First, we listened to and discussed the Transportation Agency's goals and efforts for this year, including the California Transportation Infrastructure Priorities Initiative, or what we're all affectionately calling CTIP, and the State Smart Transportation Institute's review of Caltrans. The coalition will continue to actively participate in these efforts as they move forward. Second, the coalition and Caltrans reviewed the progress that we have been making with what we are calling our state-local partnership initiative. We developed this initiative to strengthen the collaboration between the coalition's member agencies and Caltrans. We discussed the outcomes so far, and we talked about the areas where more work needs to be done. The coalition continues to place great value on our partnership with Caltrans. Third, we discussed the coalition's major legislative issues. Our focus remains on issues related to project delivery and transportation infrastructure funding at both the state and federal levels. And finally, we shared and reviewed the coalition's managed lanes policy principles with the Transportation Agency and Caltrans. Commissioner Fromer has already mentioned how important this issue is, and as you heard from our general manager, here in Silicon Valley we are making a major commitment to developing a comprehensive and extensive express lane network. The coalition is committed to working with the Transportation Agency and Caltrans and the Commission on this very, very important issue. In closing, the coalition would like to extend an invitation to the commissioners and to everyone here today to attend our Focus on the Future conference, which will be held right here in Silicon Valley at Chairman Gordino's home on November 17th and 18th. We hope to see you all there. Thank you.
And I'm going to have to leave now to start cleaning. I'll see you all on November 17th and 18th. Are there any questions for Kurt Evans with the Valley Transportation Authority? Kurt, thank you for decades of leadership on transportation. We do have a question.
Sure,
yes.
I do have one.
Commissioner Alvarado.
What were you thinking?
I guess I wasn't.
I deserved that, yes. Thank you, Commissioner Alvarado. Thank you, Kurt Evans. Let's move on to state and federal legislative matters. Carrie Porvahidi with our team.
Commissioners, Agenda Item 14 is an action item. Last Friday, August 15th, was the last day for bills to pass out of fiscal committee. This Friday, August 22nd, is the last day for bills to be amended on the floor, and the last day for each house to pass the bills is August 31st. Staff is continuing to monitor 53 bills as presented in Attachment A of your book item. At the June Commission meeting, staff was directed to prepare and submit letters of support on 5 bills. The status of these bills are as follows. SB 151 de Saulnier, requiring the Commission to allocate funding for all capital and support costs for SHOP projects, as well as supplemental allocation for projects that exceed approved allocations. SB 151 was placed on Assembly Appropriations Committee suspense file and did not pass out of fiscal committee by the August 15th deadline. Therefore, this bill will not move forward. SB 486 de Saulnier provides a role for the Commission in developing and evaluating goals and performance measures for Caltrans, modifies Caltrans processes for developing long-range transportation planning and programming documents, and establishes an enhanced oversight role for the Commission in the development and approval of the ITSP, the ITIP, and SHOP. SB 486 passed out of Assembly Appropriations Committee on August 14th with amendment removing the requirement for a project study report for the SHOP projects. SB 486 is now in its third reading on the Assembly floor. SB 983 Hernandez proposed the removal of the limitation on the number of approved high-occupancy toll lanes currently prescribed in statute and places responsibility on the Commission to review and approve hot lane applications. SB 983 was placed on the Assembly Appropriations Committee's suspense file and did not pass out of fiscal committee by the August 15th deadline. Therefore, this bill will not move forward. SB 1228, Hueso, continues the existence of the Trade Corridors Improvement Fund, TCIF, to receive funding from sources including transfers from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund for infrastructure improvement projects along corridors that have high volume of freight movement and that benefit the state's land, ports of entry, seaports, and airports. SB 1228 passed out of Assembly Appropriations Committee on August 14th and was moved forward to the Assembly floor for consideration, where it was amended adding language that projects funded through the extended TCIF program be consistent with Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and all ARB guidance. SB 1228 is currently in the Assembly second reading file. SB 1298, Hernandez, extends LACMTA's hot lane demonstration projects on the I-10 and 110 indefinitely. SB 1298 passed out of Assembly Appropriations Committee on August 6th and moved to the Assembly floor, where it was amended to specifying Caltrans provide consent for LA Metro to continue the I-10 and 110 express lane program. SB 1077, DeSaulnier, creates a mileage-based user fee task force within the Commission to guide in the development and implementation of a pilot program to study the potential for a mileage-based user fee as an alternative to the gas tax. SB 1077 passed the Assembly Appropriations Committee on August 14th and has moved to the Assembly floor for consideration, where it is currently in the Assembly third reading file. At the federal level, U.S. Representative Janice Hahn from Compton introduced H.R. 5101 on July 14th, which proposes to establish a National Freight Network Trust Fund Act of 2014 to provide dedicated funding for projects that improve the national freight network. This bill sets up a National Freight Network grant program, which would be funded by directing 5% of the import duties collected by Customs and Border Protection. The competitive grant program would be administered by U.S. DOT to provide 90% of the funding for projects that generate national economic benefits, improve the performance of key corridors and gateways, reduce congestion, improve transportation safety, and enhance the national freight network. Eligible grant recipients include states, regional or local transportation organizations, and port authorities. Staff will be monitoring this bill. In support of H.R. 5101, an Assembly joint resolution has been introduced and referred to the Assembly Transportation Committee, urging Congress and the President to enact H.R. 5101. As Mr. Mamano mentioned earlier, at the federal level, H.R. 5021 was enacted on August 21st, extending the transportation funding until May 2015, providing $10.8 billion. With that, staff recommends the Commission accept the staff report and provide direction to staff on any legislation of interest.
Carrie, thank you. Colleagues, questions? Commissioner Medaffer?
Thank you very much. My question kind of is regarding SB 1077. And, as we look at shrinking revenues for transportation, whether it's out of the federal government, state government, the New World Order is going to try to find additional spokes in the wheel to bring transportation funding in. And I believe this road user charge is probably going to be one of those areas into the future. We certainly had quite an education yesterday as to what's going on in the state of Washington as well as Oregon. And I believe this is a very important piece of legislation, certainly in its infancy for the state of California. And I would just urge all regional governments, MPOs, to write letters in support to the governor and to the leadership both in the Assembly and in the Senate so this bill can pass out and get signed by the governor. We're going to have to start someplace, and again, it's not the end-all, but it is certainly a step in the right direction.
Commissioner Madaffer, thank you for pointing out the importance of SB 1077. And for those in the audience who were not with us yesterday, we had a joint hearing all day with the Washington Transportation Commission. It was enlightening. We're so used to setting the trends in both California and in Silicon Valley. On this one, we're following a bit, but that's okay too. Plagiarism is okay if it's going to improve our state. And this bill is a step in that direction, which already has the support of the Commission. And as my colleague said, we're hoping all of you will weigh in as well if you feel likewise. Other commissioners have comments or questions for Carrie?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair Dunn.
I just needed to say out loud that I was very disappointed in SB 983 that would have removed the limitations on hot lane facilities, that it is stuck in suspense. I just hope that that's not the last we hear of it, when we hear of so many agencies around the state planning now for new hot lanes. And I would encourage all of us in our day jobs, in addition to our role at the Commission, to keep the education process on. It's just too important for our mobility and for each of our agencies and regions to have coordinated express lane systems with each other. So, sorry, a little preaching, but forgive me. This will not let me sleep well tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and thanks for the little bit of preaching, Sister Dunn. It was appropriate. Other questions or comments from the Commission? Great. Carrie, thank you again for your fine work. Yeah, we do we accept it, or we do? I think we accept it, Commissioner Alvarado, if that's okay with you. Great. Good. We're going to accept with great approval this item. Do we need a motion for an acceptance? Okay, good. Then we accept it. Mitch and Stephen, are we going to talk about budget capacity? Stephen Cack, welcome back.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Chair and Commissioner. Stephen Keck with Caltrans. I have a fairly brief presentation for you today on budget and allocation capacity.
Great, thanks, Stephen. Any questions of Stephen?
Right.
Is that brief enough?
Not quite that brief, I don't think. I remember, Gino, I turned it back on. So the first thing we're going to start with is the final allocation capacity for 2014-15 as recommended by the Department. There are not a lot of changes from the draft capacity that we brought forward in June. I'll note that the shop capacity, the STIP capacity, and some of the bond capacity have increased from what we showed you in June due to a rollover capacity from last year. We don't see a lot of rollover capacity like we did last year. For example, the shop, we're only increasing by about $32 million. The STIP are increasing by $12 million. Where we see the greatest increase because of rollover is in some of the bond programs where we had savings and were able to roll those over into the current year. Brought that capacity up from $477 million in total up to $699. So really that's the only significant changes in that area. So what we're looking at is an allocation capacity across all programs of about $3.6 billion. This is, I think, slightly less than last year, but again, I think we're looking at the tapering off of the bond program, so it's not really unexpected at all. The second piece is the brand new cash forecast for the state highway account. What we'll note most about this is for the first time, I think, since 2003, we're significantly above the prudent cash balance as recommended by the Department for a short period of time, I'll say. The reason for that primarily is the repayment of the loan from the general fund to the state highway account, which we're anticipating will occur in June of this federal fiscal or state fiscal year, so it would be next June 2015. Generally speaking, when we get loan repayments, they do occur in the very last month of the year. So we're going to see an increase in the cash balance for a while, and it will come back down. as projects that are allocated against those funds begin to spend, and we'll be back down around prudent cash balance sometime in 16-17, I believe. And this is not unexpected. This is something that happens when transportation projects that we do are great public works projects that generally spend the capital dollars over 2 to 3 year time periods. So this is the result that we get. I'm not going to complain about getting a loan repayment back, though, and I want to thank Brian especially for helping us get there on this one. We had originally thought about asking for a smaller amount, and I was a little concerned about showing you this picture. And Brian's very sage advice was, if the money's there and we can get it, let's get it back while we can, because so many times in the past we've had to delay loan repayments because everything wasn't as rosy as it has been these last couple of years. Vince already talked about this slide, which is the can kicking down the road slide. I did, however, dig up a few facts that I thought were kind of interesting, and I think will help to bring the can kicking into perspective. The first is, and many of you may not remember T21, which was the act before MAP 21. T21 had 12 extensions for a total of 22 months. Safety Lou, which was the act before MAP 21, had 10 extensions for 33 months. And now we have our very first extension of MAP 21 for 8 months. I'll note that 8-month extension is about the longest that we've seen. There's only been one longer in my records. I think what that means is there's a recognition they're not going to get anywhere anytime soon. I'll put a happy spin on this, though. We're talking about 22 extensions or 23 extensions over the last 12 years. I think what that shows is, while sometimes there's trouble getting to agreement in Congress, I think there's always agreement that they can't let this die. So that's one thing that we look at when we're trying to decide how we're going to recommend allocation for the year. We don't believe Congress is going to be in a position where they want to let this die. So if they're going to kick the can down the road, it's not my preferred option, but at least they're not going to let the whole program fall apart. The second piece has to do with the cash piece. In the last 6 years, since 2008, when the Great Recession started, there have been 5 general fund bailouts of the Federal Highway Trust Fund for a total of $61 billion. This is not on my slide. I didn't want anybody to steal that from me before I got a chance to say it. That's an average of $10 billion a year. And that's about a third of the program. So what that's telling us is, because tax collections have been pretty abysmal as of late, and I think I've showed similar charts on the state side, really the amount that the feds collect is about 2/3 of what they're spending out of the Highway Trust Fund. So there really needs to be a long-term fix to the revenue in that case. Well, I think that's it. So it was a short presentation after all.
Stephen Keck, thank you. Questions or comments from colleagues? Yes, Commissioner Inman.
Stephen, I think I asked you this yesterday, but I'm going to ask it again. As fuels go into cap and trade, I think one of the objectives of that was not have so much gasoline and diesel being sold. And so have you looked at what impact that may have if folks do indeed decide they're going to drive fewer miles?
So when we look at fuel growth in general, fuel consumption growth in general, we've been fairly aggressive in assuming higher fuel economy rates and a fairly aggressive integration into the market. You may remember, it's been a few months now, I showed that chart with the orange line and the car driving off the edge there as consumption decreases. So I think our forecasts sort of already assume a fairly significant shift to more fuel-efficient vehicles. And to the extent that there's mode shift, we've already sort of accounted for that as well in our fairly slow VMT growth. So there's been a lot of speculation in terms of what the actual cost to the consumer will be. I've heard estimates from 13 cents to $1 per gallon. Those are the extremes. If it's more than that, That's a lot. So yes, certainly at the extremes.
And Malcolm, if you wouldn't mind turning on your mic when you speak so that we can all hear you.
Yeah, I don't think we specifically broke down and anticipated what implication cap and trade would have on the consumption of fuel, but we already anticipate a decline in fuel just from more fuel-efficient vehicles. And I think Stephen's right. Depending on how much that is, it may or may not have any implications, and I think we'll just have to track it very closely as we go.
Other questions from colleagues in the Commission? Okay. Stephen, thank you.
Mitch has his microphone lit up.
Not
that I'm inviting questions from Mr. Weiss, but I wanted to be nice.
Speaking of the federal situation, Stephen, do you know offhand when the federal excise tax on gasoline expires? Or if not, perhaps Vince does? Because my recollection is that's coming up fairly soon.
That's a good question. We did have that issue before when MAP 21 was created. Vince, do you know that one? I used to know that. I don't. I'm sorry. I will find out and get the answer before the end of the commission.
Okay. The other couple of things real quick. The first is our initial look at the allocation capacity indicates we should have sufficient capacity to allocate what we have programmed this year. The second is a bit of a technical issue. As a part of the fund estimate for the last couple of fund estimates, the assumptions have included really a target for the department to accumulate an AC level that's roughly equal to 1 year's of advance of obligational authority, which is a little over $3 billion. In that time, for a number of reasons, we've been moving in the opposite direction, and the level's down to about $1.7 billion. So I wanted to, and perhaps this is a discussion Stephen and I need to have in more detail and report back. I want to make sure that the allocation capacity that's being recommended is going to get us towards that $3.5 billion level rather than having us continue with declining advanced construction balances.
Mitch, thank you. Stephen, anything else that you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
Great. On the federal item as well, and what may or may not happen in May of next year when the $10.8 billion runs its course, just to mention those who want to join us, October 23rd here in Silicon Valley, we'll be hosting our annual lunch with Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, where this will be one of those top items of discussion as well, so that we can continue not only to monitor the situation, but much more importantly, hopefully impact the outcome as well as to what Congress and the administration might do. Hearing no other comments, let's move forward. Again, we're going to move item 82 so that Nuria Fernandez can be here from the Valley Transportation Authority to now, if that is okay with all of my colleagues. So if we could turn to that page, that is the consideration of the final traffic congestion relief program allocation towards the BART to San Jose extension. Do we have any speaker cards on this item as well? Why don't we start with speaker cards then? Former San Jose Mayor Ron Gonzalez and Chair of the Transportation Committee of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. For all of our speakers, we encourage input on all items. I believe Doug Remediotis and his team have speaker cards at the table. They're probably also in the back. In a belief that less is more, we do ask speakers to limit their remarks to 3 minutes or less. Extra points for or less, and I will help you when you have 30 seconds left, should you need that. Mayor Gonzalez, welcome to the Commission.
Thank you, Chairman Guardino and members of the Commission. It's a pleasure to see you in San Jose, and I don't know if you've been welcomed, but as the former mayor, let me welcome you to San Jose, where it's cool to be a computer geek. That was a joke. But anyways, let me just... I know many of you attended the event this morning and you're inclined to make this last payment, but I want to encourage you to make the last payment of $39,300,000 $39,000. You know, that's very hard to say. Why don't you just make it a straight $40 million? It's so much easier to say it that way and to account for it also. But as you had a chance to view the project area, the terminus of the next phase of BART, you know that connecting BART to Silicon Valley and to the rest of the Bay Area, to San Jose and to Silicon Valley has been a very important regional item for all of us. I've personally been working on that item with Carl and the leadership group for over 25 years now. A good part of my life when I think about it. And I'd very much like to see the project roll into, and BART roll into downtown San Jose sometime in my lifetime. So we want to thank you for your past support, your current support, and hopefully with this vote, your future support. And welcome you back to San Jose anytime you can come. Thank you.
Mayor Gonzalez, thank you for your leadership over decades on this and other projects. Seeing no other speaker cards, the will of the Commission? I think we should present the item first in my excitement. Juan Guzman.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioners. Item 82.
Excited, huh? You know, I think we might have to move this to next month.
Commissioners, item 82 is an action item. It's a financial allocation for TCRP funds. It's the final allocation in a series of multi-year allocations for the BART to San Jose extension. This is in combination, it'll fully allocate the $760 million program in TCRP for this project. The staff recommends that you approve the allocation of $39,039,000 for this project.
Juan Guzman, thank you. Is there questions or comments from the Commission? Might there be a motion? It dies for lack of a motion. Sorry, VTA.
Happy to move the item, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Madaffer, thank you for the motion. Vice Chair Dunn for the second. Is there discussion on this item? I just want to thank my Commission colleagues and staff. We're investing a lot of taxpayer dollars in this project, and it's being delivered, as we heard this morning, almost a year ahead of schedule, nearly $100 million under budget. This is a great story for being good stewards of taxpayer dollars on a project in full build-out that will carry 90,000 weekday passenger trips, which is pretty phenomenal for this region. So thank you all for your consideration. There is, I think I just talked Commissioner Arp out of a yes vote. Commissioner Arp?
I'm just wondering, if you're 100 under, do you need the $39 million?
Remember, this is a two-segment project, and the goal is not to end in beautiful Berryessa, but to end in Santa Clara, where we have platform-to-platform connection with Caltrain and linking to the airport. I tell you what, I will give you 39 cents back, Commissioner Wright. Yes, sir. Sure. With no other barbed questions from my colleagues, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? And that passes unanimously. Thank you all. I wanted those extra gray hairs today. Thank you all. With that, let's move on to our agenda. Yesterday at our joint hearing with the Washington Transportation Commission, as we are in Silicon Valley, among others, we had in innovation and transportation, Google present on their autonomous vehicles. It was really, truly riveting and exciting. We have imposed on two more of our CEOs to present to us today on innovations in transportation. From ChargePoint, we have Pasquale Pat Romano, Chief Executive Officer, and from Streetline, we have Zia Youssef, Chief Executive Officer. I'm going to ask Pat Romano to come forward, and if there is a slide deck that we have that prepared. Pat Romano, thank you for taking time away from your global responsibilities to join us today. It's an honor to have you here, and we'd love to learn more about the innovations in transportation that ChargePoint is doing, along with your competitors in the transportation space.
Thank you very much, Carl, and thank you to the Commission for having us here today. The goal for us is to provide a bit of update on the electric vehicle industry so you can incorporate some of these trends into your thinking. First of all, what we're learning from an EV perspective is it takes an entire ecosystem to make the EV market work. California's been a leader in this industry from the beginning, and as a result, is seeing the greatest penetration of EVs. So I think everyone in the state that's involved in policy has to give themselves a big round of applause. But what we're seeing now in the industry is that this has moved away from a grant-supported, government-supported industry and into a grant and government-accelerated industry where policy, funding, things like that are now joined with the private sector to make this go. And I think that's really the sustainable model for the future for EV charging. What you see now in public and workplace charging is the mantle has passed now to the private sector in electrifying parking lots where people spend time. The model is, I'll get to it in a second, the model is a charge while you park model, not go find some place to charge model. So it really requires that we fully electrify the infrastructure where people park about an hour or more, and workplace is the key. In fact, workplace is the key to get people to buy vehicles because the primary use is commuting. And we're doing a very good job. It's about half our business. We represent about 70% of the cumulative market share in the United States, and on a going-in basis, it's an even higher number. So the statistic, I can only quote our statistics because it's only what I have direct visibility into, but it's most of the statistics in the U.S., so you can glean general trends, I think, from our stats. Utilities are starting to figure very prominently in this as well. I think it's taken a while to figure out how private companies like us and utilities work together to foster this infrastructure. But there's quite a bit going on now in PUC hearings to figure out how to reconcile that. As I mentioned before, it's a charge where you park model, not drive someplace to pump anymore. There's no technology, because of the laws of physics on the horizon, that's ever going to get us back to driving a car around until the little yellow light comes on and then go someplace and fill your battery in 5 minutes and leave. It's not that you just can't deliver that much energy to a vehicle, so you have to do it in a distributed way. So the top-off model is in force. People don't want to wait. They want to charge while they're doing something else. So they charge while they're shopping. They charge while they're working. We're seeing these statistics pervasively on our network. These are a very, very, very small subset of the companies that have installed EV charging. The point of this slide is to not only demonstrate that it has great breadth, but it is not just the technical leaders like Google, whom you heard from yesterday, that are doing this, although they are really stepping up to do this, to name them in particular. All these companies and many more in each category, 2,600, are just using our technology alone, and our competitors obviously have their own sets of customers. So you're seeing broad, pervasive adoption of EV charging, some funded completely privately, some funded completely publicly, and the minority of them, frankly, are funded completely publicly, and a combination of the two is certainly prevalent in many of the markets nationwide. A little bit of statistic for you. We've offset about 4.9 million, 5 million gallons of gasoline. So I think that's for a $250 million. There's a 250,000 cars on the road out of the 250 million in the United States. So it's about 1% of the cars on the road, and it's a tremendous amount of gasoline already avoided. I won't read the other statistics, but if you look at the size of our network, it's already at about 18,500 public ports, public meaning any place outside the home, so that includes workplace in our parlance. So it's getting pretty extensive, and EV drivers are plugging in at a rate of about 1 every 8 seconds. So we have a lot of data that's showing that people are using the infrastructure. In fact, it's overutilized. I'll show you in a second. And it's being utilized as we expected. People are doing it while they're doing something else, which is a really nice trend. This shows you the adoption rate of EVs going back to the beginning of 2011 through now, or actually June. We don't have the last few months on this chart. And you can see we're up to now, if you add the last couple of months, right up to that 250,000 cars on U.S. roads. About 35 to 40% are on California roads, so it's a trend that certainly is strongest here and growing at a very, very good clip. Where the policy opportunities are, this is just a small smattering. I mean, there's quite a few policy conversations going on. But to remind you, Governor Brown had a goal of 1.5 million EVs by 2025. I think we're going to get there. We've got a very important bill in AB 2565, and that one is to enable the folks that don't live in single-family homes to not be shut out of this opportunity. We needed some good policy work to allow people that live in apartments and condominiums to not be blocked by their landlord to be able to install EV charging infrastructure. We're doing things with other policy groups to take this further, to make it easier for folks, 35% or so that live in apartments, to drive an EV. But this is a very good start. And right now there is an OIR that's being run through the CPUC that's talking about the role of utilities in supporting this. And our position as a company, and I think my competitors share this vision, is that allowing utilities to consider rate basing the installation of EV charging is an important role to accelerate this market. Installation is about half the cost. The best installation force in the world are our utilities. They know how to handle their infrastructure best, and I think that's what you'll see continue to accelerate the deployment of EV infrastructure, in addition to a lot of other good policy work that's going on. I'll let you read the details of this, but the message is that the arrival rate of drivers is outpacing the arrival rate of infrastructure. No surprise, in an early market, people are trying to figure out how to deal with this budgetarily because no one has a model for this infrastructure to use as an example or a precedent for how to set forward policy. So that infrastructure gap continues to widen, and as a companion graph, if this catches up, the utilization per port represented in these graphs is rising as well, meaning that the number of times that you'll drive someplace and not be able to get an EV charger is rising precipitously. And in many towns in California, it's very, very, very difficult outside your home to find an open charger. So there's an acute need for an increased deployment of infrastructure. And that's both good news and bad news. It's good news for companies like myself. It's bad news for the public because what it does is it slows the adoption of EVs because of concerns about lack of available public infrastructure. What I'll wrap this brief update up with is maybe something that I thought could be relevant to the Commission. I know we're all concerned in the state about public transportation, increasing the use of public transportation, and one good marriage would be to work with the private sector to combine electrified car sharing services with public transportation depots, so companies like my own can get their employees to use public transportation when they're coming to work and have that last mile problem solved by an electrified fleet. We all have EV, most significant companies in Silicon Valley have EV charging capability at work, so it would be a small it would be a small step for them to accommodate charging those vehicles when that employee had gotten to work, and for that employee to be able to get back in their car and go back to, say, the Mountain View train station to head back to San Francisco where they live would be great. And if we can figure out how to marry the two technologies, encourage car sharing companies to station cars near public transportation centers, put the appropriate EV charging infrastructure in those centers, and then encourage workplaces through policy to support that trend, to be able to connect that last mile, maybe a way of accelerating some of the programs that you all are probably thinking of. So with that, I'll thank you very much. Take any questions.
And first of all, Pat Romano, thanks for joining us, and thanks for being such a great steward. We had asked both CEOs to be right around 10 minutes. You left 30 seconds on the table. Outstanding, as always. I'm going to start with a question and then open it up to my colleagues. 1% market penetration right now in the United States.
4 in California.
Right, 4% in California. Our cars are becoming more efficient, whether they're electric vehicles or not, and we're still on a system, as we discussed in depth yesterday with the Washington Commission, where a large source of our transportation infrastructure funding is still based on a gas tax, while our cars are becoming more efficient, or in the case of electric vehicles, completely leaving the fuel pump behind. Any thoughts on how we fund our transportation system as we continue to turn a very good corner towards more efficient and more electric vehicles?
Yeah, I mean, we've been thinking about this. We have the ability in our system to assess additional fees on top of the fees that are being collected from the driver in exchange for charging their vehicle. The problem with this whole thing, and it's a very good question, Carl, and I think information for the Commission to consider, is it's estimated that about 80% of the power that goes to a vehicle to propel it will not come from charging outside the home. It will come from charging inside the home. So you have to solve two problems. You have to solve the problem of accounting for the electricity inside the home, and then you have to solve the problem of accounting for the electricity outside the home, or you have to find an alternative method, right, to consider to gain the funds that you need to support the roads. And, we're all drivers. We all want to see our roads in good shape for not only our own personal use but businesses. So, and another thing to consider is that on our network, about 35% or so of the charging ports assess any fee at all. So, given that retailers, for example, want to use EV charging as an incentive for good customers to come in, attaching a fee to a free session would be very nightmarish to administer. It would be very also off-putting, misaligned with what they're trying to get at. So I really think, I don't have an answer. I wish I did. But I hope those points are things that you could work into the consideration as you're trying to come up with an architecture that works.
Great. Mr. Romano, thank you again for the excellent presentation. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues. We'll start with Commissioner Medaffer and then Vice Chair Dunn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I bore my commissioners, but by telling them I am an avid EV driver, driving a Leaf since last November, and customer of yours. In fact, I just noticed on the app that there's a charger right here at the Fairmont, which is excellent. The question that Carl posed is really the key as we try to find a new revenue source, and I'm certainly proud to see the growth of electric vehicles, and I'm glad to see that California is leading the way. But clearly, as this trend continues, which I am sure it will this time, unlike the last time we saw electric cars come around, we are going to have to look at alternative revenue sources. And I completely agree with you. For me, my goal is to always charge at home, but there's times where I turn that 80 to 100 mile range car into something a lot further. So my request is, as you guys add on more facilities, is more DC fast chargers everywhere you can, and more ubiquity with all of the plugs out there, the various adapters, whether it be Tesla or Volt. GM has their plug as well as the one that you do, and I think it'll continue to spread as time goes forward. And certainly anything I can do from my role here at CTC to help accelerate the proliferation of public charging, I'm all about it. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments. Just to make you understand that we are hearing comments like that. First of all, we are headlong into DC charging where appropriate. It's only appropriate for where you're going to stay for a short period of time, trying to get to somewhere else. We're jointly working with car companies and state and local governments to jointly fund, including some funding from our own company, sites. We are very committed to make sure that we can charge every single car type at those sites. It'll be a patchwork to some degree because of the standards problem. There are 3 DC connectors, only one for AC. Thank God the universe settled on one. But it is Beta VHS and Tesla for the rest of the industry. So what we're committed to do is, as we build future technologies, we will have 3 cords essentially off the device for a DC charger until the market settles down, and that won't happen for a long period of time. But we'll make sure that every site can charge all cars. And we don't want this we don't want this to be a detraction from people buying EVs. But very good points.
Commissioner Medaffer, thank you. Vice Chair Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I love this stuff. This is so awesome, and I really appreciate what you're doing, and I really appreciate the whole idea about new technology being presented to the Commission, because helping us to be prepared for the future. But both our chair and Mr. Medaffer, Commissioner Medaffer, raised the exact points I was looking at. I mean, just calculating on your numbers, the vehicles that are using the road system, saving 4.9 million gallons of gasoline, cost the rest of us who are stuck in gas-powered vehicles almost $3.5 million. Mm-hmm. So they're being subsidized by the rest of us who don't yet drive Priuses, et cetera. And I personally find it would be troubling to level you adding fees onto vehicles to have them pay their fair share. I think that makes it a complicated system. But I love that you also are looking at the idea that just as your vehicles have to connect into an energy system that pays part of the use of an energy system, to think about them in your strategies of connecting into a road usage system as well. We all need to rethink this to make sure that we have roads for your vehicles to drive on in the future. But thank you for some very, very exciting news, and wish you the best.
Thank you. Excellent. Yes, Commissioner Assemi, and thank you, Vice Chair Dunn. Commissioner Assemi.
Thank you. Just a brief question. This is very fascinating technology, and charge where you park versus charge where you actually, in gas stations, is a very interesting concept. Just a quick question. Have you analyzed to take a look at current energy cost? What is that break-even point where it becomes actually less expensive to operate, regular gas-powered car versus charging an electric?
Well, I'll give you a couple of interesting statistics. If you paid if you at home commercial rates, what are we seeing? About 12 cents a kilowatt hour commercially, uniformly across the U.S. Tier 1, and then at home it's varied because it's tiered pricing. It typically, on average, is close to 10x, depending on where you're getting your power. Cheaper to drive an EV from a fuel perspective, but that's not the total cost of ownership equation difference. Nissan did a very interesting slide at the Plug-in Conference, which was recently in San Jose. I can get it from Nissan if anyone wants to see it. But they took the most expensive Nissan Leaf that they sell, and they benchmarked its 5-year cost against a very average Toyota Prius gas-powered car, which is one of the best, from a mileage perspective, gas cars that you can drive on the road. And it was substantially cheaper over that 5-year period to drive that Leaf when you took into account maintenance and fuel cost. You took into account the state and federal rebates. It actually is a pretty good economic situation right now. So a lot of people think that EVs are for wealthy Tesla drivers. That's not the case. The lease deals on most cars are awesome. And even if you just flat out bought it, you would be in far better shape. And by the way, I also think from a convenience perspective, have a better life. Not going to the gas station is liberating. I never have to go to the gas station. It's a wonderful thing. My car's always full in the morning. I'm never 10 minutes late for work because I forgot that I needed to fill my tank. I never think about the cost of it. I can guiltlessly do donuts in the parking lot right here and not worry about hurting anyone except maybe myself, right? But I'm not hurting the environment. I'm not running up a bill, what have you. And it's economically great for the United States because it keeps that transportation money here in the U.S. Instead of purchasing foreign oil. So I think it's good for everything: environment, people, cars, you name it. And you really have to look at the whole equation. I think there's a lot of education that has to happen for the general populace to really understand that. They just look at sticker and they don't account for these other things, and I think that's a problem. I think they need to be expanded.
Pat Romano, that was excellent. Thank you for taking time away from your business today to join us. Fun fact about Pat Romano, he's a nationally ranked Ironman triathlete as well.
Thanks.
So we expect you to swim, bike, and run right out of here and get back to work.
I won't use any gas, I promise.
Colleagues, will you join me in thanking Pat Romano, CEO of ChargePoint? Well done. Now it's a pleasure to bring up the CEO of Streetline, former executive at SAP, Zia Youssef. And for those of you who have the Game Changers book, he was one of our 20 authors last year as well. Zia, welcome to the California Transportation Commission. I'm always fascinated when I see your presentations. As with Pat, we're hoping you can present to us for about 10 minutes or less, and then we will engage you, obviously, in conversation.
Sure.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Carl, for the invitation. Good afternoon, everybody. I am not a nationally ranked triathlete, so just let's all set the bar a little low here. So I'm here to talk about parking. And I joined, I'm new to the transport industry, joined it about 4 years ago, but was just fascinated with this whole topic of the Internet of Things and sensors and the impact that parking issues were having in our day-to-day life. So if you look at it, it's estimated, and there's a lot of work being done by UCLA and other folks, that up to 30% of the traffic in a city is caused by people looking for parking. And in places like New York, it's up to 45%. And if you kind of think about it, historically, everybody's looked at traffic. It takes you 14.2 minutes to get from point A to point B. The problem is that point B is not your destination. Your real destination is point C when you've parked that car. And it's that second piece of the puzzle that historically people have not looked at. There haven't been programs around it, there hasn't been funding around it, because you had no data, you had no information. The prevailing view was that you could not do anything about it. And now we can change that. So the environmental impact of that, the economic impact of that is all very significant. And what Streetline is about is completely rethinking this topic of parking from the perspective of cities, consumers, and merchants. So the parking industry, and this is one of the things that kind of fascinated me to enter this, was it's an industry that hasn't really changed much in the last 30, 40 years. You still have coin-operated meters in many parts of the U.S. You still obviously don't know where to park. You get to an intersection and your spouse says turn left and you say no, it's on the right, and you go in the middle and you don't find it, and after 10 minutes you get frustrated and you go to a different Italian restaurant because parking is a pain. And so the Streetline and our investors kind of came to this, as many kind of innovations happen, coming to this from a completely different perspective. And I think in this case it helped that we were not from the transportation industry, because we didn't know what was right and what was wrong. So it helped us kind of rethink that. So what we do then is we very importantly have three stakeholders or three customers in all of our projects. The first is the city itself. And whether it could be a city, it could be a university. We're now starting to deploy at corporate campuses and universities across the U.S. as well. So if you look at it from a city perspective, I think the thing that we brought to bear on the industry was parking is a significant real estate asset. It's a very large real estate asset in a city. But it's not priced appropriately, it's not allocated appropriately, and you will have, because of the urbanization happening in California, in the U.S., parking is going to be one of the, it is talked about today. People talk about parking karma. The 49ers Stadium, they lost, unfortunately, 34-0, but the biggest thing that was being talked about was the parking issues related with that and so on. So you see that this is an issue that will become worse and worse as more people live in cities. So we are focused on the economics of the parking spot, the revenue associated with that 10 by 20 piece of real estate, how to optimize it, how to allocate it, how to price it. We're now doing dynamic pricing in Los Angeles, if you will, where in one block you could have $2 an hour, 3 blocks over it could be up to $5 an hour. So when you have a scarce resource, to start thinking about dynamic pricing from a parking perspective, all that technology exists today. From a consumer perspective, and all of us drive, we're looking for parking, finding parking, paying for parking through an app and potentially reserving it, are all technologies that have been developed in the last couple of years. I think we're getting to the point, certainly in certain cities, where somebody, maybe your children, your teenagers that start driving saying, well, what do you mean you used to look for parking? Didn't the car tell you? Didn't the app tell you? We can do that today in the 30-plus cities that we're deployed. You can go find a parking spot within a couple of minutes instead of the 10 to 15 minutes. And then finally, the third important stakeholder here is the merchants, is the businesses. For them, ensuring that the customer can actually get to that store, get to that restaurant is very important. And today, the way you solve that typically is you get valet parking or you don't care. There's nothing you can do about it. So we have built applications, and I'll show you one of them that allows a merchant to embed that real-time parking data onto their website and get that information in different ways. So the cities, the people that manage parking, and also the garage operators, the consumer and the merchants, those are the three stakeholders that come together and are the most impacted by this. So what we do in kind of one slide is we go out and put out these sensors on the ground. It's like a hockey puck. It's about 5 inches in diameter, about an inch thick. It detects the presence of a car. It goes into each parking spot. There's a mesh network that goes up on top of it. That detects the arrival or departure of a car. All that information comes into our data center and so on. And then we've built these applications, web and mobile applications on top for these different stakeholders, the cities, the universities, the consumers, the merchants, if you will. It takes us 10, 15 seconds from the point a car comes into a spot for you to see that on your smartphone, that it's an available parking spot or not an available parking spot. So that's how kind of that whole system is set up. You can see a picture of the sensors. I thought I'd put that up. It's the left-hand side. You can see the scale in terms of the small disc next to the red car on the right-hand side. The sensors last 4.5 to 5 years on 2 AA batteries. So it's pretty remarkable kind of where that hardcore technology is. Now, just to mention a couple of the apps, Parkside is one of the applications. This is a SaaS application. You get a username and password. This is where we give all the analytics information to the city. Tells them what has been the pattern every minute of every day throughout the city. That's where you start making your policy changes. That's where you start thinking about the pricing changes, if you will. And for the first time in history, actually proactively manage this asset because you have the data to make those decisions as opposed to anecdotal evidence that parking is a problem. Park Edge, I'm not going to spend time on this, but we obviously look at both on-street parking as well as garages and lots. Park Edge is a system for garage operators to manage their asset. Because, like William Shatner at Priceline would say, don't charge me $40 to park when you have 50 spaces available. And if it's 6 p.m. and your garage closes at 10 p.m., the garage operators today have no way to tell you, the consumer, come to my garage, I have 50 spaces open, I'll give you a $10 discount. And Park Edge is what starts to do that. So it starts to optimize this perishable good that every day kind of regenerates itself. Parker is the consumer app. If you have an Android or smartphone, you can download it, take a look at it. It's called Parker. It will give you the real-time data, the garage information. It's the only app of its kind that has real-time information in the world today. And it truly kind of, if you are in an area, and we'll talk about California in a second, completely changes that experience. Parker Map, as I said, it takes you maybe 3 to 5 minutes for somebody that manages a website for their restaurant or their business to embed this data onto their map on their website. And so you can get that same real-time information. If you look at restaurants in San Mateo and San Carlos and so on in this area, they have that up there. Now, one of the interesting things and why this topic of parking has become such a source of innovation throughout the U.S. is once you put out this mesh network, you can start putting other sensing devices underneath that. And that then starts to form the foundation for this whole topic around smart cities. Everybody's been talking about smart cities from all kind of different directions, and I think people have been surprised that this, parking topic has become kind of the wedge and the leading indicator of that innovation. So we have temperature sensors, for example, in the parking sensors. We're looking to put sound sensors in there, pollution sensors, and once you lay out that network, and because the parking ROI is so strong, then you can start adding other pieces of the puzzle to it. Last couple of slides here, I just wanted to, and it's not just because I'm kind of presenting to the California Commission here, but Streetline was very much started in San Francisco. We're now in the peninsula here. We had our first project with Eric Garcetti in Hollywood. He, to this day, goes out and as mayor of LA, shows that application everywhere he goes. And I'll say, and I haven't said this publicly, but I think this is the right way to say it. I mean, California and Streetline California and a couple of other companies are the companies that are solving parking for the world. And I think we should all be proud of that. And I make this big statement that we can solve that. This is through data, through applications, through smart infrastructure. It's a problem that can be solved. So we've expanded. LA is our biggest customer, so downtown LA, Hollywood, Venice, and then there's a series of cities in Venice. So we're very kind of grounded on the California side. We just recently did a project with Contra Costa County, with Randall there. And I think it's now, having dealt with so many different heads of transportation, etc., it's been gratifying to see people that are being innovative, that are stepping out of their comfort zone and saying, yes, there are things that are happening that can leapfrog generations in terms of thinking about this problem. It's not about meters anymore. It's not about the hardware you put on the street. It's about data and information. If you cannot find a parking spot, 99% of the time it's an information gap. It's not a gap of the physical infrastructure. I put this up here in terms of our partners only to deliver one message, that this parking is attracting companies that you would never expect to be engaged in parking. So you've got the Ciscos of the world, the IBMs, the AT&Ts, the Verizons, Microsoft, Qualcomm. Qualcomm is an investor in Streetline. All of them are coming and gravitating to this topic, and all of them resell our solution because they find it very interesting of being able to solve this problem at a consumer level and at a city level. And I put this one up here partly so it makes me feel good, but partly also it's amazing how much general interest there has been in this topic from people, because it seems still a little magical that you can look at your app and it can tell you there's parking around the corner, 3 blocks down and so on. And so we've used that momentum to move this forward. Let's go. Yes? No? There we go. So with that, I'll close here, and I just want to leave 2 messages, if I could, for the Commission. One is, please consider the issues and the opportunities around parking, smart parking, in your discussions in a much more proactive, structured way in California. It is part of it. You cannot ignore it. It's not that there's traffic and highways and streets. Cars only do 2 things. They drive and they park. And we're potentially ignoring that, one piece of the puzzle. And secondly, I think having a California-wide smart parking strategy, if you will, is something that I would submit for you to actively consider. With that, I'll stop.
Zia, that was excellent, as always. Thank you so much. Questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Burke.
I'd like to get some idea of the timing. Only times that I've had any experience with anything like this has been in department store parking lots, where they have green or red. And by the time I get to the green, it's red. Or there's someone who comes in before me. How do you work with it? How do you solve the timing problem?
No, that's a very, very good question. So in our app, if you pull it up, we actually don't send you to a specific parking spot. We have 3 categories of colors or numbers: less than 2, 2+, and 4+. So what we're trying to do, Commissioners, is inform your decision when you get to an intersection on the street. And at that point, you have 3 choices: left, right, and straight. If the turning to the left says less than 2, don't go there. You may find something, but very unlikely. If it says 2+ straight or 4+ to the right, if you make that turn, you're 100% guaranteed to find parking. And by that, we then keep the, we keep the count of if there's 3 spaces open, 2 spaces open. We don't tell you go to the 4th space on the right-hand side in this block, because, real world interferes with that logic.
Excellent. Other questions or comments from commissioners? Why I thought this would be interesting both to the Commission as well as transportation professionals and stakeholders in the audience was that first number you started with, Zia, 30% in cities were wasting time, gas, and causing congestion looking for parking spots. And if we're trying to alleviate congestion in California and have better quality of life, that's what I find so intriguing about your industry, not just Streetline, but the industry as a whole. Commissioner Inman.
I just have a question for you. With other systems that we've seen, the sensors seem to disappear, and I forget what the Caltrans number is of how many of our sensors, our traffic sensors, are somehow ended up not functioning anymore. They've disappeared. Are your sensors fairly secure? Are you seeing any theft?
Two pieces of that. One is disappearance and not functioning. So in the 4 years that I've been there, we have not lost a single sensor to theft. The sensors are embedded in the ground. With enough time and muscle and a hammer and whatever, you could probably get it out. But even if you do, there's not much you can do with it. I mean, it's a fully encased thing, and you can make a paperweight out of it, but in of itself, it's worthless to you as an individual. You may enjoy collecting sensors, but other than that, yes. In terms of functioning, we have a very high record. When we provide this, we don't actually sell the sensors. We provide a smart parking service to the city, which means we own the equipment, we provide a data service, we provide the apps. We just did a deal with Cisco where, in addition to sensors, we're going to start using cameras, especially in parking lots and so on. So we want to detect the real world. We want to have, in essence, the city talk to us and give us information. And we manage the sensors. We have now stuff in France and Europe. We know the status of every single sensor every minute of the day and can remotely update it and put software into that device. So it's a very kind of scalable, robust solution.
Any other questions from the Commission? Seeing none, Zia Youssef, Streetline CEO, thank you so much for enlightening us today. Will you join me in thanking Zia for taking the time?
Thank you.
A few months ago, Jeff Morales and I were having lunch and thought it was well past time if Jeff wouldn't mind coming back to the Commission and giving us an update on the high-speed rail program. So we'll move on to item 17. Jeff Morales, thanks for taking the time. It's good to see you again.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioners, for the chance to be here. I guess we fit in the category of innovative transportation since the U.S. is 50 years behind the rest of the world in developing high-speed rail, but we are bringing it here to California. And I do appreciate the chance to update you. What I'd like to do is spend a little bit of just a very brief time going over some background, talking about where we are, the status of the program, and then what we intend to do moving forward, and what we intend to do moving forward in collaboration with this Commission. The first thing I think is important to remember is high-speed rail really isn't about a train. It's about connecting up the state, connecting the economies of the state, connecting the cities of the state. As we grow from 38 to 50 million people over the next few decades, this Commission knows as well as anyone that we can't just keep doing more of the same and handle that growth and meet our sustainability goals, our environmental goals. We have to do some things differently. Rail is part of that, and certainly high-speed rail is an important piece of that, working with regional and local transit as well. When you think about connecting the state, that's really what this is about. San Francisco and San Jose being 30 minutes apart instead of an hour or an hour more apart as today. Fresno being less than an hour away from Silicon Valley as opposed to half a day or $700 on an airplane flight. That's what this system will mean for California, and that's why it's so important that we're moving forward with it. It's why Governor Brown has been so steadfast in his support, and we're very pleased to be advancing the program. Sorry, I got a heavy thumb, I guess. Sometimes there's a sense that we've been at this forever, and why isn't it done? But when you think about it, really the starting gun for this program went off in 2008, 2009. First with the passage of Prop 1A, by the voters of the state, and then in 2009 with the enactment of the stimulus package by Congress and as proposed by President Obama. And when you look at it from that perspective, the fact that we have moved ahead, have achieved what we have in terms of securing funding, getting environmental approvals, and being under contract and under construction within 5 years, that's a record we're pretty proud of in terms of progress, and I think it shows what California can do and what we are doing. To give you a sense of the progress, by next spring we will have, depending on the bid prices, somewhere north of $2.5 billion worth of construction under contract and underway on this system. Sometimes you can overuse the word game changer. I'm not sure that that's an overstatement when it comes to what cap and trade means for our program, but I think also very importantly for the state as a whole in terms of rail and transit investments. The cap and trade program that was proposed by the governor and then ultimately approved by the legislature really is in fact an unprecedented investment, an ongoing investment in the development of rail, in the development of transit, and certainly in the high-speed rail system. It builds on what we've done over the last few years to look at how our system integrates into the rest of the state system. And I think it creates new challenges, but more importantly, new opportunities for collaboration between our authority, between regional agencies, and with working through the CTC. I want to talk a little about what we will be doing based on the availability now of cap and trade. And it's important to remember that what the legislature did really had two pieces to it. One, it's the allocation of a set amount of money in the current fiscal year, $250 million coming to high-speed rail, with another $400 million becoming available next year. But very importantly, again, the continuous appropriation of 25% of the cap and trade revenues going forward. That really changes things for us. And what it does more than anything is lets us move forward with this truly as a program, as a statewide program, moving on multiple corridors simultaneously. And just in summary, what that means is simultaneously, not sequentially, we will have three major areas underway together. On the peninsula here, the electrification of the Caltrain system, something that's been talked about for 30 years, is now happening. The environmental reviews will be completed later this year, and then it will be underway. Simultaneously, we will continue with the construction in the Central Valley, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But now with the cap and trade money, we can also start advancing work in Southern California on a more expedited basis, and that creates some great opportunities that we didn't have before. One of them being just simply getting into the most heavily populated part of the state, bringing transportation investments on this scale there, but also creating the opportunity for a connection at Palmdale with the Express West system coming in from Las Vegas. And if we do that, what we're really talking about is a Los Angeles to Las Vegas connection by high-speed rail. And that's a big important thing, not just for this state, but for the country. In round numbers, there are something on the order of 19 million trips taken from the LA basin to Las Vegas annually, 15 million by car. If you've ever driven that, I'm not sure why you would, but imagine now, instead of a 5-hour car trip, being able to do that in an hour and a half or so on high-speed rail, and being able to gamble and drink while you're on your way. And to put in some context, because I think there's one of the challenges we've faced is people didn't really understand, and frankly the authority had not made clear how we would develop the system, and there was a sense that somehow we'd all just wake up one morning and it would be there. The program we're embarking on now with the cap and trade really starts to look at how other systems are developed, such as I-5 in California. It wasn't all built overnight. It was built over a 30-year period, roughly, with segments coming open as funding was available, as environmental approvals were secured, and ultimately tying together in a full system. That's exactly the approach we're taking now with the development of our system. Just a quick summary of the three areas that we have underway, again, here in Northern California. So the electrification is underway, electrification project, as well as the construction of the Transbay Terminal, which will be the northern terminus of the high-speed rail system. We're already seeing the sort of economic impact that a station can have in a city with the activities around Transbay, a little bit different than when it was a bus station not too long ago. The tallest building west of the Mississippi will be sitting over top of that station, giving you a sense of what sort of economic activities can happen. And we are moving forward in conjunction with the cities where we will have stations. We're providing planning grants, working with them to make sure that as we develop the system that we really achieve the goals that we have in terms of promoting more sustainable development, denser development, more transit-oriented development. Central Valley is where a lot of the attention has been, certainly, and it's the focal point. It's where we're building the spine of the system and the beginning of the true world-class high-speed rail system. And we are underway. We awarded our first design-build contract a year ago, August. Work has commenced. We are taking down abandoned buildings that are in the right-of-way and beginning the preliminary pieces of work that will all ramp up over the next few months. We are in the process of procuring the next design-build contract, and again, between those two, we will have something on the order of $2.5 billion under contract. And very importantly, we've secured all of the environmental approvals all the way from Merced to Bakersfield now, clearing the way for that construction. And then in Southern California, as I mentioned, we're now focusing and accelerating our work between Burbank and Palmdale, really to create, again, those opportunities to connect at Palmdale, but also that will be a huge difference. Today, the Metrolink service, which is growing service, but because of the limitations it has of going through the canyons, it's about an hour and 54 minutes, something like that, from Burbank to Palmdale. The high-speed rail system, that service will be 14 to 16 minutes. That's a fundamental difference, a game changer in terms of, again, connecting those economies and really changing how Southern California can work. And that's why we want to move ahead and get that done. And we're also working in collaboration with our partners, for instance, at Burbank, where regional transportation investments are being made, ultimately a plan for a new terminal at the airport, but also bringing in transit, tying in with those systems so that we really work collaboratively. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about the coordination we look forward to with this commission and with our other agencies. First, as through the reorganization, I think it's great that we are now under the same umbrella, which will help foster greater coordination and collaboration, and we look forward to that. We are committed to working with you to make sure that as we move forward with our program, we're doing so and making complementary investments to those that this commission is approving and advancing. A good example of that being the Proposition 1A connectivity money, which, as you'll know, for years was held up because there was no agreement on a plan. And we worked together. 2 years ago, Commissioner Tavallone was the chair at the time, and we worked with him and with BIMLA at the time to work through the issues that had prevented us from coming up with a plan. And we're able to free up that $950 million in connectivity money, and that's all being put to work today. I think that's a great example of the kind of collaboration we can have. Now, as we look ahead, the other piece of the cap and trade that's been appropriated on a continuous basis, the 5% for intercity and for 15% for operations, will come through this commission and developed under guidelines at the Transportation Agency. We want to and will work with you to, again, make sure that we're developing our programs cooperatively, collaboratively, so that we can leverage those investments and really make the most of them. So with that, Mr. Chairman, again, I thank you for the chance to come talk. I hope it's the first of many conversations we have, and I'd be happy to take any questions you or others may have.
Jeff, that was excellent. Thank you for driving all the way down or traveling all the way down.
I took the train down.
Yes, excellent. Thank you for cycling all the way down. Colleagues, questions, comments for Jeff Morales, yes. Commissioner Assemi.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff, for coming and your presentation and all your efforts in Central California to make this Phase 1 become a reality. The Madera-Fresno section, which will create thousands of jobs and eventually connect what we call Eastern California to the rest of the state through a very efficient and cost-effective transportation system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from our colleagues? Very good. Mr. Chair is back.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dunn. We all have bosses, and that was my wife, so I hope everyone understands. Great. Lots of heads nodding in agreement. Jeff Morales, anything else that you'd like to leave as we continue to build this partnership and you continue to build high-speed rail in California? Oh, forgive me, I did not see. Undersecretary Annis, thank you. Sure. Brian?
I wanted to thank you, Chair Gardino, on the invitation to Jeff Morales to come and update you and the Commission on the project today. Clearly there's huge momentum here, and Jeff certainly mentioned the funding issues. Also on legal issues there's been great momentum recently as well. And, we, of course, this morning when visited the Barry S. BART station, and that's a project that was mentioned this morning, hopes to connect to the Diridon station here in San Jose and ultimately to high-speed rail. And really that whole integration of transit in California has great potential for, being greater than the sum of its parts for those people that can transfer from their local communities and their local transit ultimately to high-speed rail and travel interregionally. Jeff mentioned the two other cap-and-trade programs, and we hope one of the benefits of those as well is to further the integration efforts, whether it's joint ticketing, some integration of scheduling, all these things that we think are very important. And so, again, applaud you in bringing Jeff forward here, because I think the coordination is going to be so important going forward.
Brian, thank you. Jeff, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming down today. Actually, will you all join me in thanking Jeff Morales and his team for the work they're doing? Steve? It's exactly. Is it? You're right. We're 2 minutes ahead of schedule. Would you like to wait those 2 minutes and we'll go to the next item?
I think we can proceed.
You think we can proceed?
Yes.
Okay, good. Stephen Muller, item 18.
Yes, Commissioners, this item is a presentation of the Proposition 1B Highway Railroad Crossing Safety Account Program. We are embarking on the fourth cycle of the program. It was a program that we hoped to accomplish in one cycle, but it's taking 4 cycles now. Every year we generate savings and we recycle the savings and reissue call for projects and then try to program the projects. Right now we have received applications for 4 projects. We have vetted the applications for eligibility. We have found them all to be eligible. The 4 projects are the Fullerton Grade Separation Project, the Hellman Road Grade Separation Safety Crossing Improvement, the Ramona Boulevard Grade Crossing Safety Improvement, and the Citrus Avenue Grade Crossing Safety Improvement. The first one, the Fullerton Road, is actually eligible for both parts of the program. There are 2 parts to the program. Part A, which is you have to be on a PUC list, and a Part B that's basically open to everybody. The first project is eligible for both parts of the program, and the other 3 projects are eligible for the Part 2 program. Overall, we have $16.8 million to distribute. According to our schedule, staff will come out with staff recommendations on September 19th for what staff would be seeing that should be approved, and the Commission will then weigh in and approve the program on October 8th at your next Commission meeting. That's my presentation, and if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer if there's anybody who wants to address the Commission about their specific projects.
Stephen Mahler, thank you. We do have a number of speaker cards. If it's okay with my colleagues, we'll hear from our speakers and then proceed accordingly. We have at least 6 speaker cards. I want to thank you. I would ask if you wouldn't mind kind of teeing up, then we save the queuing time as well. We're going to ask again each of you, if it's okay, up to 2 minutes for your comments. If you have comments in writing as well, that is entirely appropriate to add on as well. I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left. Let me give the first 3 names. No action today because we're looking at this for September. Thank you. October? Thank you. Okay. But we do want to take your comments today. So we're going to start with the first 3 of Paul Hubler, Alex Gonzalez, and Ann...
And Louise Rice.
From Metrolink.
And Louise Rice.
So Paul Hubler, Alameda Corridor, your 2 minutes doesn't start until your lips start.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for this opportunity to appear before you and to give you a little bit more information. I know this will be coming back to you in October, but to give you a little more information today about our project. The Fullerton Road project is a priority safety improvement project, as staff has noted. It is eligible for both parts 1 and 2 of this HRCSA program. It's ranked number 3 in LA County and number 8 in the state on the current CPUC priority list. That list is based essentially on congestion, traffic delay, and safety incidents or collisions at the crossing. The crossing is used by 40 trains a day, 28 freights, and 12 Metrolink commuter trains, and about 25,000 vehicles. The project, the grade separation project, will eliminate significant crossing delay and collisions. There have been 2 collisions recorded at this crossing over the past 10 years with 3 persons injured. We are confident that we can award a construction contract no later than and likely well in advance of March 2016. That's prior to the CTC deadline of June 2016. We've initiated right-of-way acquisition and have full environmental clearance. We're overmatched by 7-1 with non-state funds, far more than the 1-to-1 match that's required, and we will ensure that the railroad contributes the match or the contribution as provided consistent with state law. I look forward to your support, and thank you for your past support. I would just note that our agency currently has 5 projects in construction. We have over $450 million in TCIF and HRCSA funds awarded for those 5 projects. We are anticipating opening those 5 projects, 1 per year over each of the next 5 years. And again, thank you for your support.
Thank you, Paul Hubler, and 5 seconds to spare. Excellent job. Next is Alex Gonzalez, then Ann with Metrolink, followed by Andrea Zersick. Alex Gonzalez.
Chair Gardino, members of the Commission. I am Alex Gonzalez, the Interim Director of Public Works for the City of Covina. I'm here to support our project on Citrus Avenue and also Metrolink submittals for other projects. The Citrus Avenue crossing is adjacent to the Covina Metrolink station. It is the 2nd busiest station on the Metrolink San Bernardino line. We are, I believe, the 3rd busiest station in the whole Metrolink system. Currently, the grade crossing is adjacent to our station, and to the west is the majority of the parking for the station. So we have over 1,000 pedestrian crossings at the gate arms next to the station per day. The city is currently out to bid on a $1.8 million project that will reduce pedestrian and vehicle interactions, improve channelization, and widen sidewalks. As when people come off the Metrolink train, they generally travel in large packs in the street. We want to make sure that people are safe. The city does not have the money to do the right-of-way improvements, even with our large contribution of $1.8 million. We would requestfully request that you support Metrolink's request for funding, because that will give us the opportunity to do the improvements in the right-of-way. So the city will take care of the work outside the right-of-way, and Metrolink would then be able to take care of the improvements in the right-of-way to improve pedestrian safety. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Alex Gonzalez, thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Alex, thank you, and left 30 seconds to spare. We're going to go to Ann with Metrolink, then Andrea with Sandbag, and then Mark, S-T-E-U-E-R. Let's go to Ann.
Okay, thank you very much. SCRA Metrolink is seeking a total of $5 million, which is about half of the total available in this category, Part 2 of the HRCSA program. Using these funds, we'll improve 3 grade crossings. You already heard from Alex about Citrus. We have 2 others. One is Hellman Avenue, and then also Ramona Boulevard, as was previously mentioned. The program, the HRCSA program, has previously invested in sealed corridor improvements on the Antelope Valley and Ventura lines. We now request investment on the San Bernardino line, which is our most active route. We run about 30-minute headways. There's 42 trains a day. There's also significant traffic on this route, especially at Hellman, where there's 6 freight train movements as well as an active switching area, so there are up to 15 freight moves at that crossing. We are requesting a little over $2 million for Hellman, a little over $1.5 for Citrus, and $1.5 for Baldwin Park. It's important to point out that Baldwin Park, who couldn't make it here today, is configured at an angle. The crossing is configured at an angle that's between 2 streets. So it is, and it experiences significant pedestrian, truck, and auto traffic. We thank the CTC for its previous sealed corridor investments, and we look forward to your consideration of this request. We will also have, besides the 2 cities, Sandbag and Metro to speak in support of our project as well. Thank you.
Ann, thank you. Any questions of Ann? Seeing none, we're going to go to Andrea, then Mark, and then Patricia Cohen. Andrea, welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrea Zurich. I'm with San Bernardino Associated Governments, and I'm here today to support the City of Rancho Cucamonga and SCRA in their request for the Hellman Road Grade Crossing Project. This project is in San Bernardino County. Your agenda says LA County. I want to point that out. Their $2 million request is the final phase of a $16 million project that provides safety improvements for vehicles and pedestrians at this grade crossing. And we appreciate your consideration of this shelf-ready project and your adoption of the program in October. Thank you.
Andrea, thank you. Any questions for Andrea? And thank you for pointing out that this is actually in San Bernardino County, not Los Angeles County. Thank you. Appreciate that. Mark, followed by Patricia. Mark, welcome.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Mark Stoyer, pronounced Stoyer, and I am the City Engineer for the beautiful city of Rancho Cucamonga. I am here in support of securing HRCSA funds for the city's Hellman Avenue grade crossing improvements. For you unfamiliar with the area, Hellman Avenue is a major north-south arterial which for years was not designed only for a roadway. It was actually a flood control channel. It would carry large amounts of water, threatening vehicular, pedestrian, and even rail traffic when historically water would sometimes run over the tracks. Last year, the city spent over $10 million to mitigate the water off the surface of the roadway. We intended to also do the at-grade crossings, but unfortunately, we literally had the rug pulled from beneath our feet when the state eliminated redevelopment, hence the monies needed to do the grade crossing improvements. Unfortunately, we could not complete that portion of the project, but the city moved forward with the design of identifying future funding. Well, this funding opportunity has presented itself here today, and we are asking the Commission to consider our request for this greatly needed Prop 1B allocation. We have worked collaboratively and effectively on the design with the Southern California Regional Rail Authority, and we'll have 100% plans complete and ready to go in 2 months. In addition, the city has budgeted its contribution to this project in the current fiscal year, and I thank the Commission for your consideration.
Mark Stoyer, thank you. Any questions of Mark? Seeing none. Oh, Patricia Chen? Yes, thank you. Forgive me, I read your card wrong. Patricia, welcome.
Thank you. I am representing LA Metro, and I have brief remarks in support of each of the HRCSA candidate projects located in LA County and the local funds that we would be contributing to each of them. As you have heard from those testifying before me, the ACE Construction Authority's Fullerton Road grade separation project will have important safety and air quality benefits that support regional and state goals. Metro has a committed match of $100 million in local funds, or a 78% match. And for the SCRRA projects within LA County, the Ramona Boulevard and Citrus Avenue grade crossing safety improvement projects in the cities of Baldwin Park and Covina, respectively, will provide cost-effective safety improvements at high-activity locations near Metrolink stations. Metro is proposing a 50% match to each of these $1.5 million requests. And those funds would be programmed upon recommendation. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Patricia, thank you. Questions for Patricia? Good. Stephen Muller.
Well, just to end the hearing, just to remind you that we have $25 million in request against a pot of $16.8 million. So we will be staff will be looking at the projects and making a recommendation to the Commission based on the merits of the projects.
Any questions of Stephen? Stephen, I only had one question, and this is not taking away at all from the merits of these four applicants. We have 58 counties in California, tremendous needs along our rail crossing systems. What was our way of communicating that we had $25 million that people could compete for? It surprised me a bit that it was 3 from one county and 1 from a neighboring county.
Well, the way the Commission set up the program is we were looking for projects that could be basically shovel-ready projects, because this is bond money and this is money that we wanted to have already spent a long time ago. It's just being generated through savings to projects. So every time we go out with this round of projects, we are looking for projects that are basically ready to hit the ground and spend the money. So that was the requirement, that they be ready by 2016 for construction.
I'm just surprised there weren't more applicants from around the state.
Actually, over time, we've pretty much used up all the projects that are ready, and now there are other projects out there, but it would take many years to develop the projects. These are about the only projects out there that are ready to go.
Stephen, thank you. And seeing no other questions, let's move on to item 19. And in just a couple of moments after item 19, we're going to take a 10-minute break, just because we're all humans. We want to give you all a chance to stretch your legs. So item 19, Laura?
Yes, Commissioners, this is an action item to adopt a STIP right-of-way reporting policy. This policy is being proposed by staff in response to the passage of SB 853, signed by the Governor on June 20, 2014, as part of the 14-15 budget. This law added a section to the Streets and Highways Code. This law, SB 853, signed by the Governor on June 20, 2014, added a section to the Streets and Highways Code to require that actual STIP right-of-way expenses for department-administered projects be reported at the time of project completion, contract acceptance, and that any differences greater than 20% be accounted for in the shares. So this policy basically spells out how we plan to do that. In particular, it makes it clear that we expect it to be effective July 1, 2014. Any project that has completed or had contract acceptance from that date should have the right-of-way expenses reported, and we'll be working with the department on the frequency and format of that reporting. Staff recommends your adoption of this policy.
Laurel, thank you. Is there a motion? There's a motion from Commissioner Medaffer. It sounded like a second from Commissioner Burke. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? That passes unanimously. Thank you, Laurel. If it's okay with everyone, including my colleagues, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Thank you.